Stages of Faith, a summary introduction. From time to time I have made presentations on stages of faith, how people of faith develop through the seasons of life. Many people have asked me to put some of that in writing, so I am posting a summary of these presentations here. There is a whole body of literature out there on the subject, some of which is more helpful than others. Some of the best-known names are Fowler, Kohlberg, and Maslow. While all of them are helpful to a degree, the version that has been the most helpful to me is found in The Critical Journey by Janet Hagberg and Robert Gellick, who passed away before the second, fuller edition. Credit where credit is due. I probably would never have heard about this book had it not been for a recommendation by a former colleague at Andrews University, Skip Bell. Thanks, Skip, this did me a lot of good. In what follows you will note significant differences from Hagberg. I have thought through her system and evaluated it by my personal experience, my experience as a mentor, and my study of the Bible and other trusted literature. So what I offer here is both dependent on others and uniquely my own perspective. Take it for what it is worth. There are 6 stages in all, with some points of transition. I begin with a quick summary and then handle the stages in more detail one by one. The first stage is initial acquaintance with God. I sometimes call this the romance stage. It is a time of first love with great joy in walking with God. At the same time, there is not a lot of knowledge, so the person is vulnerable to superstition. The key at this stage is connecting with a community that can nurture and train the new believer in a healthy way. The second stage I call the learning or discipleship stage. It is a time when new believers explore, study, and learn how to fit into their new spiritual community. Finding the right mentor is crucial at this stage, as people are eager to learn and can be often led astray. This is a time of high confidence, where new believers feel that they have found the truth and can become somewhat legalistic and inflexible. If people find a healthy mentor, they will continue to grow, moving from disciples to teachers and leaders. This third stage can be called the success stage, a time when believers help others learn what they have learned. Their leadership is often praised and rewarded, and they feel like they have arrived. It is often a confident stage, the pinnacle of what people expect from spiritual growth and leadership. If things ended right here, everyone would be happy. But it is not so. At some point in the third stage, usually somewhere between the age of 30 and 50, most people of faith experience what I call the dark night of the soul. This is a personal crisis where past certainties become inadequate, where you begin to question everything you have ever believed and find God to be silent or distant. This frightening experience is not destructive, but a doubt that leads to greater faith, because it strips away the subtle selfishness that permeated the success stage without our being aware of it. Some people back away from the dark night as if it were not from God, and others blame their spiritual community for all that seems to be going wrong. But those who drink in this suffering as a call from God move on into the fourth stage, which I call the journey inward. Up until this point, we accepted the purpose of the church or our own ambitions as the purpose of God, but the dark night drives us to understand and embrace God's unique purpose for our lives. Our faith moves from the head to the heart and becomes much more relational. It is like a second conversion. The fifth stage I call the journey outward. At this stage, we go back into the world and do the kinds of things we did in the success stage, but with different, more selfless motives. People will often change ministries at this stage and become willing to go smaller, humbler, and riskier. They are now living God's purpose rather than that of an institution or others. At this point, a surprising thing happens. We would have thought that deepening spirituality would be recognized and supported. Instead, the closer we come to God, the more out of touch we seem to be with the system. This often provokes a second dark night of the soul, which wrings the hidden selfishness out of our spirituality. In the sixth stage, followers of God are ruled by unconditional love. They have learned to see people through God's eyes and love them the way God does. One would think this would be a popular stage in any religious institution, but the opposite is the case. The one thing most people will not tolerate is for you to love their enemy, whether that enemy is an abuser, a different ethnic group, or an annoying relative. Unconditional love often proves disruptive in relationships. By this time, you probably wish I had stopped at stage 3. We would love for the ladder of faith to lead from triumph to triumph. But that is not the way things go. In this broken world, the closer we come to God, the stranger we become to others, even when the others are in the faith. In what follows, I take each stage, one at a time, and explore the implications for faith, leadership, and mentoring. This is the most life-changing material I have ever learned or shared.